If there is something that insurance companies really know about, and it's somebody in your role, it is risks surrounding climate. Give us a sense of how much more frequently we are seeing already extreme weather events, and how much you assess that they will pick up in the future, because you keep so much data on this stuff.
And thank you for having me. And I mean, it's disappointing, but weather beats climate in any given year. So it's very hard to say how much of the events we saw in 2021 were really climate driven. I think what is undisputed is that a warmer world will have more frequency of events and also more severe events. And I think that's basically the price to pay for climate action failure. And the economies will need to carry a significant cost, and that cost is the trade-off of not acting. And so that's why we think it is smart to invest now in the transition.
Smart to invest now in that transition. And a lot of people, Peter, talk about how that transition needs to be fair, it needs to be just. It's also really difficult to achieve. I mean, even in Europe, relatively wealthy countries, we see people take to the streets when energy prices go higher. We're seeing it, this month's demonstration of this is over in Kazakhstan. Can we expect to see much more of that, much more? The transition perhaps gets more difficult from here.
Well, I mean, any industrial revolution wasn't a smooth path. I mean, history is very clear on that. And I think that notion that we can plan and smoothly transition our economies is, in my mind, totally flawed. It will be disruptive. There will be disorderly parts. A lot of jobs will be destroyed. And we don't know even about the jobs that will be created. Take the digital revolution as a comparison. 28 years ago, nobody was talking about smartphones. Today, we think they rule the world. And the same has and will happen in the carbon sector. New technologies will take over. And to an extent, we need to allow the chaos of the transition. But we should be optimistic about the outcome, because every industrial revolution has created more jobs than it destroyed.
Well, we can talk about the climate transition, but we also have to face the climate reality of the current moment, Peter. And there was actually a great story out yesterday that talked about just climate-related disasters here in the U.S. last year cost $145 billion in damages. How underinsured are we for climate change and the weather events that come with it?
Well, at least in the Western world, we see an increasing rate of insurance coverage, but it's still around 50% because, for example, a lot of the public infrastructure is uninsured. At the end of the day, I mean, insurance will not fix the problem. Insurance companies merely redistribute the losses into the premium funding. And societies, societies will pay for the increasing damages. And insurance companies can only help evaluate the possibilities of losses and help manage losses when they occur, but they cannot change the long-term trends.
Yeah, I was going to ask, similarly, are you seeing more and more properties, more and more events, Peter, that are simply uninsurable due to these risks?
Well, the question is, what is uninsurable? Premiums will just become they will become almost prohibitive. They will become so high that people will not want to take out. And we have the risk of political intervention. We hear about affordability of insurance and political intervention when it seemed not to be no longer the case. But technical premiums are an indication of risk. And the risk will not go away, and artificially lowered premiums, as we see it in many exposure areas for natural catastrophes, just send wrong signals to the market and to individuals, and will continue to delay the transition.
Peter, I ask you this also keeping in mind your current role as interim CIO at Zurich. What bearing does all of this have on inflationary forces in the global economy?
I don't think there is a direct link here between the inflationary forces and the climate transition. I'm more concerned about the already very high level of public debt that restrict the abilities of governments to make interventions to help the transition. I think that is probably the bigger concern at this stage. That inflation is coming back I think that's a different story, but I don't want to put that one on the climate change.
Peter, thank you very much. Thanks for your thoughts. Peter Giger, Zurich Insurance Group Chief Risk Officer and Interim CIO.